For today's review, we are looking at the question. Now, who is the question for those of you who have never heard of this character before? The included data profile card, as usual, will give us that information. And here you have this nice image of what the figure looks like in the comic book source material, but there is something quite obvious that is very different here in this photo. He is wearing a brown color suit. I have never seen this character depicted wearing any other color suit before, so this is the first time I've ever seen this image. For the longest time that I've known of this character, he's always been depicted wearing his blue color suit. Whether it's the light blue or the dark blue, that's the version that I'm familiar with. This one, I don't know where it's from. Maybe this is what he looks like in the classic depiction. I don't know. I've never seen what the classic version of the character looks like. If you do know, let me know in the comments below. Alright. On the back, his real name is Vic Sage, and it reads, "When Crisis on Infinite Earths first reshaped continuity, the Question migrated to Earth from another reality. His career ended when he died from cancer, but he ensured there would always be answers by training Gotham City detective Renee Montoya to become a new Question. Following Flashpoint, the Question was reimagined as a mystic enigma. Eons ago, with Pandora and the Phantom Stranger, he faced the Council of Eternity to answer for his sins. Defiant and unrepentant, his punishment was having his identity and visage magically erased. In modern times, he sought Pandora's box, hoping to answer the question of his identity. He united with the Phantom Stranger and Pandora as the Trinity of Sin, but eventually betrayed them. After this, he vanished, no one knows where." That is very interesting information. That's a lot of information that I've never heard of. And I say this because my knowledge of this character is very limited. My exposure to this character was because of Justice League Unlimited. And I only know the surface level of this character. And that's the fact that he's a detective. He's always trying to solve cases that go unanswered. Right? That's the whole thing with this character. And in the episodes that I really loved from Justice League Unlimited, I remember his whole quest of exposing Cadmus. And even the moment where he confronted Superman on the whole Justice Lord situation. Those were like probably my most memorable moments of this character doing what he does best. And of course, on the occasion, him and Huntress being the best duel. I love when those two characters interacted because you never think that Huntress and this character would ever, work. But they do. And those moments were my favorite moments from that show. Alright, with that said, what does this figure include in terms of accessories? Unfortunately, there are no accessories with this figure, which I think is probably the bummer. This is the only version of the Question that we will ever get because, for those that don't know, this is a Platinum Chase figure. So, it's already limited in quantity as it is, and that is not fun. And also, since this is the only version of him, it would have been nice if they included his unmasked head, because for those of you who don't know, he's not a faceless person. He does have a true identity under that face. It would have been nice if there was an alternate head sculpt. It would have been nice if he came with a few interchangeable hands. Something. Instead, there are no accessories at all. So all you're getting is just the figure. And that is it. So, alright, since there are no accessories, let's just dive into the aesthetics and let's talk about this figure. And right away, before I zoom into some of the details, I do want to point out that this body buck, for those of you who don't know, is a reuse of the Joker body buck from the Dark Knight trilogy. And honestly, this is not a bad reuse. I like the fact that this body buck works for this character because he is wearing a suit, and I do like the way that this coat here was sculpted. So, in terms of reusing a body buck for another character, in this case, it works. And with that, let's zoom in on some of the details on this figure. Now, one thing that I don't like right away, and I will point this out, is that a lot of the details are pretty much buried in paint. They could have painted these in a different color, but of course they did not, because this is a $25 figure. So of course, you're not going to expect the best quality of paint here in terms of every single tiny detail. But if you are a customizer, you can definitely go back and paint a lot of these buttons here on his shirt, or his coat, actually. His shirt is underneath. And then his inner shirt here, I guess, these buttons could also be painted as well. So there are a lot of details here that could probably be tweaked to make it stand out a little bit more. So on that front, yeah, it kind of sucks that most of it is just buried by the same color paint. Now up here, where his collar is, where his undershirt is, the yellow shirt, at least that's painted nicely. I like the fact that his tie is also painted very nicely. Pretty cool. And down here with the pants, it's all just the same color again. I do like the texturing of the pants. However, because it was used for the Joker, it's very noticeable that, maybe the pants that he wears probably wouldn't have these sort of textures. But it is what it is, right? So I do like the fact that these texture marks are there throughout the whole pant region of his clothing. But yeah, just the same color throughout the front and the back. Nothing really significant there. And as for the back of the figure, there's not really anything going on here. It's just straight up blue paint. So yeah, most of it is pretty simplistic, as you can see. Now, in terms of his head sculpt, though, I do like what they did up here. So, as you can see, in most depictions, he never really has, like, a crazy shadow in his eye region because, it's a mask that he's wearing. But I see why they did this, because in some lighting angles, it makes sense that there would be a shadow here because he is wearing a hat. So I like the fact that they painted it that way. I like the fact that they did sculpt a nose, and you can see an imprint of a mouth. So you do see that he does have a face underneath. And if he did have his unmasked head sculpt, that would have been a very cool addition to this figure. Now, another thing that, I like about this body buck is that it does make for a good custom for a civilian style character. However, you wouldn't buy this Platinum Chase for that. If you wanted this for a custom, you would have bought the Joker figure for that so you can repaint the whole thing and go from there. So, in this case, because this figure is so limited in quantity due to the fact that it's a Platinum, you're not going to be able to find it that easily. And that is one of the gripes that I still have with Platinum Chase variants in this sort of way, where they lock new characters behind it. It's not fun to look for. And if you did watch my recent short on how I found this figure, I would not resort to the last option if it wasn't for the fact that, my retail stores in my area are just complete ass. So, yeah, that's the unfortunate thing here. But at the same time, that was also a gamble as well, because I had no clue if that vendor would even have this figure in stock. And I'll just say this, I'm glad I got it for the price that I got it for, because some of the eBay sellers are charging even more for this figure right now, and that number is not a pretty number. It's way higher than how much I paid for it. However, how much I paid for it is still higher than the retail price, but I'm okay with it. I can live with it because I need this character in my collection, and because I love this character from the TV show that I watched, where he was in that TV show, well, I like this character, and I've always liked what he represented. So, yeah. And that's pretty much all the aesthetics for this figure. There's not much else to talk about because, again, everything is just pretty much painted in the same color. He does have his black color gloves, as you can see, but that is pretty much it when it comes to aesthetics. And I think it's good enough, but again, tiny details, if you're a customizer, you can probably do something with this. So, all right, let's talk about articulation. This is the first time I've ever had this body buck. I don't have the Joker figure, unfortunately, so there's no comparisons there. And let's see how this body buck moves. So, of course, his head sculpt, he can look up, which is pretty good. He can look down. I do like that. As you can see, some figures can't even look up sometimes, which is not a good thing. But this one can, so I'm happy about that. He can turn his head side to side. He can also tilt his head side to side, so I do like that. So head movement has really good range of movement. I do like that. As for his arm, it can go out. It can go all the way back. He does have the upper bicep swivel up here. That works. He also has the double jointed. That's good. He also has his swivel on the hands. And also articulation underneath where that ball peg is. But because my copy is still very new, it doesn't want to work with me. Oh, actually, it does work. Hold up. Oh, there we go. And see, actually, it does work. Okay. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're very stiff. All right. So this is the one time where it isn't. As for his torso, it is using that overlay style effect. Not effect, sculpt style. Man, I'm mixing up my Photoshop thing with what I'm talking about here. So basically, there is no cut in the middle here for an upper torso movement. So everything is reliant on the waist area where the ball peg is situated inside. So if you want him to lean forward, you're not going to get that movement because he can't really lean forward. If you want him to lean back, he can lean back. And that's something that's very strange to this day. Like, one of the gripes that I have with this line is that some figures can lean forward really good. Some figures can't even lean forward at all. And then some of them can lean back really good. Like in this case, he can lean back, but he can't lean forward. So, not a fan of that. As for his rotation, that's pretty good rotation. It seems like it's very loose, but it's not that loose. So I do like the fact that it can move. As for his legs, he can spread out pretty good. Even with these pieces, hindering it, even though they're soft, I mean, they do get in the way. That is still a pretty good range of motion with the legs. But you're not really going to do any crazy action poses with this character because, he's not really always fighting all the time, right? So, as for his legs, they do kick out okay. It's not the best. I honestly think that they could have improved it up here by carving out, more room. But like I said, he's not a character that always fights all the time, right? He does know how to fight, but, that's not what he does most of the time. So, okay. And for his legs down here, he can double joint, so that's really good. It's very stiff. I do like the stiffness of that. He does have feet articulation as well, as you can see. There is a swivel, but it is not working down here because it's tight. It's new. I need to heat that up. Let's see if this side works. No, it's the same thing. But there is a swivel down there. He does have toe articulation. So, there you go. That is basically all the articulation on this figure. Now, there are certain ways that you can probably use this figure. If you don't want to use him as the question, if you have this figure, you want to use him as like an old school detective of some kind. Coincidentally, he does have a trigger finger hand. And I have put a gun accessory on his hand. Oh yeah, he can rock a gun. He does not use guns, I don't think. I don't remember him ever using guns in the cartoon. Yeah, so, but if you want to treat him like some sort of, I don't know, old school detective, he got a gun, you can do that. Treat him as a mobster sort of character, I guess. If you don't want to use him as a question, you can do that. Or for some random reason, the crowbar, or not crowbar, the wrench thing that comes with the first appearance Batman, you can have him hold the wrench too. So I don't know why, but I like him holding the wrench for some reason. I don't really know what the hell's wrong with me. Okay, so there he is. He's holding a wrench. Let's just have him holding that as the accessory because he doesn't have any accessories. And let's bring in some figures for comparison. And let's start with Fortnite Girl. There you go. And as you can see, he is taller than her, of course, because she is a 6-inch scale figure. And here he is next to the Jazzware Master Chief Halo figure. And I think they're around the same height, right? They kind of... No, Chief is a little bit taller. But still, not a bad scale right there. And here he is next to the Mcfarlane Warhammer Lieutenant Titus. And of course, an armored character like that definitely has to be a little bit taller, and he is. So, pretty cool. And of course, last but not least, we gotta have him next to his love interest, of course, which if you watch Justice League Unlimited, you would know that these two are a couple. And there you have the two of them together. And that is a very nice pairing right there. And something else that you can also do with this figure, which I did for a photo, is if you do have the street light accessory from the collector edition Dark Knight's Return Batman, you can use it as a background piece to go with this figure because it looks like he's on the street outside waiting for a taxi or something. However you want, imagine what you want to pose this figure in some sort of setting. So he does work with that accessory as well. And that is basically going to be the review for this figure. Again, I think it's a good question figure. They didn't do a bad job, but he would have benefited if he had some accessories included. And if he wasn't a platinum edition, I think most people would be able to find him and not have to resort to using the last option of going to, you know, the third party option of buying the figure. So yeah, that is still going to be a gripe that I'll have with all these Platinum Chase variants, especially when they're of brand new characters and not, you know, a repaint of any kind. Like, repaints are kind of whatever to me. But when it's a brand new freaking character, don't do this. Why do they keep doing it? I don't know why they keep doing this. Okay. All right, with that said, if you found today's review informative, do give it a like. If you want to subscribe to the channel for more action figure content and whatever else I do on here, you can. You don't have to. In the end of the day, I make these videos for fun. And with that said, take care, and I will see you in the next video.